I remember when I saw the sun just coming up, and I thought to myself, if there was an end of the world or an apocalypse, it would probably look like that.
Department morale hit an all-time low following the Rodney King incident. Arrests declined, and LAPD activities came under intense scrutiny.
And we were getting looting calls at a lot of the strip malls, with hundreds of people just breaking into the stores.
Justice Department's Department of Corrections personnel, ATF, DEA, FBI, all kinds of federal agencies. There's a real undercurrent of resentment against the police.
We started getting guard shacks burned, police cars burned. There were not enough police officers.
And there's no police presence down here. They will not enter the area.
More drivers were pulled from their vehicles and beaten.
We have to stop blaming each other. We need each other to survive.
There was literally nothing that we could have done. Los Angeles is probably one of the most diverse, one of the largest cities in the nation. Here we have the hub of the entertainment industry. You know, we've got Venice Beach, we've got a world-class airport, and we also have some of the typical social problems that come with any large city that we've had to deal with as a law enforcement agency. I had always kind of had an interest in becoming a police officer, but the thing that we always faced being in an Asian family is they didn't want me going into law enforcement. My first job out of college, I was an internal auditor with Raytheon Corporation in the Santa Barbara area, and absolutely did not like it. I didn't feel like I was getting any job satisfaction. I ended up getting another accountant job and moving back up to the Bay Area, and I joined the San Jose Police Reserves at the time. And I started enjoying that work because it was more rewarding to me than actually what I was getting paid for at the time. And it doesn't take a smart man to realize that quite possibly it might be a good time for a career change. Los Angeles happened to be hiring at the time. That was probably about 1989 or so, and I came down here when I got hired. I started the academy in April of 1990, and I'll tell you, that was probably the best decision that I had ever made. When I came on in 1989, the law enforcement industry per se really was not nearly as diversified as it is right now. Because crack cocaine was so lucrative, in the 70s and 80s, you saw a big proliferation in gangs getting into the business of selling crack cocaine, which absolutely devastated the community. LA was very, very violent. You know, we probably had about 1,000 or more homicides a year. My classmate, Tina Cabrat, she was the first female killed in the line of duty. And we had just graduated, and we'd only been out in the field for a few months when she came across a group of men, and one of them shot her in the head. We were young police officers. We'd gone through the academy together. We were a pretty close and tight class. It's kind of like an aha moment that, wow, I've never had it happen to somebody this close that I knew. And it was a very, very sobering moment for me and many of my classmates when that happened.
But I think when he hears about an officer getting shot or hurt, it takes him back to that personal moment of when he lost his colleague. So now more than 30 years later, I think he still carries that personal loss with him.
Seeing traumatic incidents starts the first day you're on the job. I mean, I remember as an officer going to traffic collisions where 2 people had died, and you know, the car was incinerated, and people committing suicide and murders and things like that. And then, you know, after a while, it becomes, you know, part of the job. But I did also recognize that it was important for me to spend time with, you know, my kids.
I remember looking back when I was, I think like 7 or 8, and I was playing soccer. I know that he was extremely busy with work, but he would always make time to make sure like he was always there for those tournaments. Growing up around the LAPD was eye-opening in a way. If I went on like a ride along in the helicopter with them, You know, I got to see the city from up above and like how they kind of operated in that aspect.
So it was interesting coming back to Central Division, being a police officer, and then coming back as a captain, because one of the interesting things about being assigned to Central, Chinatown was in Central. They had never had an Asian captain over Chinatown ever in the history of LAPD, and back then LAPD was probably 120, 130 years old.
Ramona Gardens, no stranger to violence or to LAPD.
I was on probation here in 2004, and we've had many riots in here to the point where we had to have skirmish lines because they were trying to arrest one person. It was pretty bad over here. There was instances where officers just conducted extra patrol and they would get shot at from unknown locations.
So this is Ramona Gardens, and this is old World War II base housing. And in 2007, when I was a captain here, this was a much different place than it is right now. There was a gang that ran this location. Community members weren't able to use the rec center. And as we did outreach in here and built more rapport with the community and the officers that are working here, that tipping point happened where we were able to communicate more with the community. They trusted us. We brought in services as well as a footbeat of officers that were just dedicated to this location. And over 17 years later, if you're in this area and you come to Ramona Gardens, it is a much different place. I see officers interacting with children. I see families over here that are having picnics on their lawn. 17 years ago, you never would have seen that. And so I really attribute that change to the hard work that the officers have done, but also in 2007, the first seeds were planted with the footbeat, the CLEAR program, as well as the captain's tables in developing that trust that has now evolved into what you see right here.
He's been working for LAPD for about 34 years, and he still has the same passion that I remember him having when he was younger. His work ethic, his attitude, just the way he carries himself. He's very proud of his job, and that's something that I can look up to.
When I joined the police department, the highest ranking Asian was a lieutenant, which is 1 bar. For an organization that had been around for over 100 years, it was a little bit astonishing to me that Asians had not been able to rise up through the ranks and assume positions of leadership. We have an Asian female helicopter pilot right now, sergeant. We have Asians on the SWAT team. We have Asians that ride horses in the equestrian team. We have Asians in leadership positions as senior lead officers. The LAPD that you see today is a much, much different place than it was when I came on. As a parent, I think you breathe a sigh of relief when your kids are growing up and you realize they've gotten through the formative years without any issues. I think one of the proudest moments I had was I got to pin his badge on him, and it was my old badge number.
It was like a very intimate moment for both of us. For him to see his son finish the academy was a really proud moment for him and for myself as well. Whatever path it may be in the Los Angeles Police Department, I'm proud to carry on his legacy.
Those of us that are on the department now stand on the strong shoulders of those that came before us, and they stand on the shoulders of those that came upon them. Looking back, there was a lack of planning on the part of the police department. And I look back at where we are 30 years later and how our workforce changed. We've really diversified the workforce, and I believe we reflect more of the community, and we're not going to let the relationship with the community ever get like that again. When our careers are over, nobody remembers what position we were in or what we did, but they always remember, oh yeah, you know what, that guy, he treated me fairly and treated me well. That's all I would hope to be remembered for, is somebody that treated people well and was a good person. That would be all I would hope for when it's my time to leave this department.